Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready to learn.
Are you? Alright, hello and welcome back. This week I have James Crumley's book, The Mexican Tree Duck. So this is another fiction book. I wouldn't quite say that it's a Western, but it kind of has the vibe of one almost. So this book follows the main character, CW Shugrue, and he is a former Vietnam vet, current PI, living in Montana. It's a little bit difficult to say when exactly the book takes place. I think it's 80s, 90s-ish, just because there's not a whole lot of talk of technology, but there are some talks. And like I said, there are kind of those like old Western story kind of vibes to it. So, the story starts out with Shugrue. He's drunk, he's an alcoholic, he's a drug addict, not like hardcore drug addict, just kind of like somewhere between an addict and a casual user, we'll put it like that. Anyway, so he gets hired by these two brothers to go to Abnormal Norman's ranch. And Abnormal Norman is a biker gang leader. And he bought fish from these two brothers, except he wrote a bad check. And so they hire Shugrue to go and retrieve the fish. There's a shootout, yada yada yada. They work out an agreement. Well, Abnormal Norman calls Shugrue back, and they're actually old, not quite buddies, but almost. They worked together at one point in the past. But anyway, he calls him back because he and his fiancée want to get married, and he wants his mom there. But Norman is, for all intents and purposes, an orphan, and he only has a suspicion about who his mom is. And the woman he thinks is his mom is the wife of some, like, big Texas oil dude, and the FBI is looking for her because they think that she's been kidnapped. So the majority of the story is just Shugrue trying to figure out where the hell this woman is, how to get her back, and all that good stuff. Along the way, he meets Mel, a bartender. He meets some sketchy people who may or may not be in a gang. He meets Winona and her son Lester. And little baby Lester is just like this little cute baby, probably like a year or so. And he kind of falls in love with Winona a little bit. And yeah, it's just all that adventure. They find the mom. A lot of drama happens. And I don't want to spoil it too much. I think the thing that I personally liked most about it was the journey, especially because a large chunk of the book actually takes place in Colorado. And so since I've grown up here, it was really cool to be like, oh, I kind of know where Aspen and this other place and this area is. It also takes place a little bit in Texas, New Mexico, whatnot. And I liked, too, the characters. Shugrue, he's kind of complicated because on one hand you're like, oh, he's this rough and tough guy that, like, is just kind of a lot, and he's bitter and hard and whatnot. But at the same time, like, he does have a soft side. Like, even though he doesn't plan on caring for Winona, not like I think anyone really plans on caring for someone, but he ends up really caring very deeply for her, and it's really hard when she keeps disappearing because of all these bandits and gangs that are involved in this whole debacle. I also thought that the like supporting characters like Winona and Norman were really well written. I really liked his couple of Vietnam vet buddies. There's Frank and Jimmy, and they're just very colorful characters, and even though they're only in the book for about half of it, you really get a sense of who they are, and you really get a sense of liking them. I think the only thing I'm not wild about was just that there was so much of this emotional work and character building that the end felt a little bit rushed. And I don't know, it's like a 200 some page book, and most of the book is 260-ish page book, and 200 of those pages are this journey to try to find Sarita, Norman's alleged mom, and then the last 60 pages are like a gunfight and like the end. And it just seemed a little incomplete to me. I think it was a good book overall, though. I would recommend it. The only reason why I think it might be a little bit difficult for some people would be if you're sensitive to swearing. There's a lot of F-bombs that are dropped. If you don't like sex scenes, they're not graphic by any means, but there's definitely like a decent amount of sex in this book. And also if you don't like violence, again, it's not super graphic and gory, but like there are enough gunfights and killings that it's kind of a lot, to be honest with you. But I did like it. I think it was a really good mystery. I thought the plot was really good. I thought the pacing until the end was really good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. I think it's one of those books that you read once and you really enjoy it, and you don't read it again for a while. It's kind of just one of those. Well, that's all I have for the Mexican Tree Duck. Next week, I don't have a physical book. I have an audiobook. It is called Working Class Heroes by Chad Descoteau. I found it because of the writing community of Twitter, and I took a listen, and I am excited to share my thoughts about it with you next week. Thanks.